There's a moment in your life where time literally freezes, where a single second becomes an eternity, where your entire world shifts on its axis, and you can never quite put it back together the same way again. I want to tell you about that moment, and I want to tell you about what came before it, because the before part is important. It's important because it shows you how easily someone can deceive you, how carefully they can hide betrayal beneath layers of love and kindness, and what feels like genuine care. My name is Sarah. I'm 28 years old. I've been married for 6 years to a man named Michael. We've been together for 9 years total. We have 2 children, and I'm 6 months pregnant with our 3rd baby. As I sit here and tell you this story, I'm in a safe place, my father's cabin. But that wasn't always the case, and the journey to get here was the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my entire life. The story isn't easy to tell, because it's not just about betrayal. It's about losing your best friend, your husband, and your sense of safety all at the same time. It's about discovering that the 2 people you trusted most in this world were lying to you for months. And it's about having to make impossible choices while your body is changing, and your heart is breaking, and you're trying to protect your children. So let me start at the beginning, because context matters. And before I tell you about the text message that changed everything, I need to tell you about the year that almost broke me. 2 years ago, I got a phone call that every adult dreads. It was from my dad. His voice was quiet in a way I'd never heard before. He told me he had stage 3 colon cancer. My mom had passed away when I was 12 years old, so my dad was all I had. He was my only parent, and he was my favorite person in the entire world. Let me tell you about my dad. He's the kind of person who makes you want to be better. His laugh is contagious. The kind that fills up a whole room and makes everyone else laugh even if they don't know why. He gives these big bear hugs that feel like everything broken inside you suddenly snaps back into place. When you've had a hard day, he doesn't interrogate you or poke and prod for information. He just sits with you and listens. And that listening feels like the most valuable thing in the world. I became that age where you realize your parents are human, and humans are fragile, and humans die. Michael was my rock during this time. When I got the diagnosis, I drove to my best friend's house, and she held me while I cried for hours. But it was Michael who held my hand every single day after that. He was attentive. He was loving. He helped me with the kids. He encouraged me to be there for my dad without making me feel guilty about what needed to be done at home. About 5 months ago, we got the updated prognosis. The treatments weren't working. The doctor said something to my dad that my dad relayed to me, and the words will stay with me forever. Months, not years. Months, not years. I remember sitting in my car after that appointment and I couldn't breathe. I felt like the ground had opened up beneath me and I was falling, and there was nothing to grab onto. Michael was there when I got home. Without saying anything, he just held me. He didn't try to fix it or make it better. He just sat with me in the worst moment of my life and reminded me that I wasn't alone. Around that same time, I started thinking about my job. I was working full-time, managing a small team at an accounting firm. It was good work. It was meaningful work, but I was missing so much. I was missing time with my kids. I was missing time with my dad. And I was terrified that time with my dad was running out. Michael sensed this. He suggested that maybe I should think about quitting. Not in a controlling way, in a supportive way. He said it would save us money on childcare anyway. That I should focus on what mattered. My dad, my kids, us. So I quit. A month later, we discovered I was pregnant. I was shocked. We hadn't been trying, but Michael was happy. He assured me that it was still okay to quit my job, that this was the right decision, that he had me. So I stayed home. And I focused on being there for my dad as his health declined. I was there for my kids. I was pregnant and emotional and terrified. And Michael was present, or at least, he seemed to be. Now, before I get to the part where everything falls apart, I need to tell you about my best friend. Let's call her Amanda. We've been friends since we were in diapers. Our mothers grew up together. Amanda's family became my family after my mom died. When I was 12 and devastated and didn't know how to survive in a world without my mom, Amanda was there. Her family was there. They took me in and loved me and made me feel like I still belonged to someone. Amanda was the kind of friend that people talk about when they're describing their soulmate, but in a friendship way. We did everything together. We told each other everything. She was the first person I told when Michael and I got together. She was in our wedding. She was there when my kids were born. She was the person I called when I found out my dad was dying. And she held me and let me cry and promised me she would always be there. I believed her. This morning started like any other morning. My 3-year-old was sick. He's the kind of sick where he needs to stay home and have mom cuddles all day. Michael's work alarm was going off. He had set multiple alarms. He does this sometimes because he doesn't always trust that one alarm will wake him up. I walked into our bedroom gently. I turned off one of the alarms and woke him up to tell him our son was sick and I'd need him to help manage things around the house. He said he was late working yesterday, so he was taking the morning off. He rolled over to go back to sleep. I went to turn off the other alarms. This was completely routine. I'd done it 100 times before. As I reached for his phone, I saw a text on his lock screen. It was from Amanda. The text said, "I'm assuming since there hasn't been any angry, pregnant lady on my doorstep, you haven't told her about us yet." And in that moment, time stopped. I read it once. Then I read it again. Then I read it a third time, trying to make the words mean something different. Trying to make them mean anything other than what they clearly meant. My hands started shaking. I took his phone and walked out of the bedroom. I didn't wake him up. I didn't say anything. I just took his phone and walked away, and I started reading their conversations. And as I read, I felt myself disappearing. For months, this man had been having a sexual relationship with my best friend. For months, these two people who I loved and trusted more than anyone else in the world had been lying to my face. They had been lying to everyone. I'm sitting in my living room, reading these conversations, holding a phone that felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds, and I'm trying to process what I'm seeing, but I can't, because it doesn't make sense, because it contradicts everything I know about these two people. Michael had been nothing but loving and attentive. He was present with me. He held my hand when my dad was dying. He encouraged me to quit my job so I could be with my family. He made me feel safe, and all of that was a lie. All of it. The conversations between them were casual. They were talking about logistics, about times when they could be together, about how I didn't suspect anything. They were planning around me. They were coordinating their affair like it was a project at work. Amanda called him her brother in some texts. And then in other texts, she was describing what she wanted to do to him sexually. The sickness of it. The betrayal of it. It was too much for my brain to hold. I was clutching his phone in my hand for 2 hours. 2 hours of standing in my living room while my sick child was in the other room, and my husband was in bed, and my entire life was coming apart. And he just kept sleeping. I made a decision in those 2 hours. I made several decisions, actually. First decision, I'm going to get evidence. I'm going to document everything. I'm going to be smart about this, and I'm going to protect myself and my children. Second decision, I'm going to talk to a lawyer. Third decision, I'm going to confront him tomorrow. But not today. Today, I need this last day of peace with my family, because I know that tomorrow, my family will no longer exist. Fourth decision, I'm not going to tell Amanda anything. I'm not going to rage at her or confront her or give her the satisfaction of knowing how much she's hurt me. She doesn't deserve my words. She doesn't deserve my anger. What she deserves is to be cut out of my life completely and permanently. I spent the entire day gathering evidence. I took photos of the text conversations. I wrote down dates and times. I documented everything. And then I made an appointment with my OB/GYN for the next day to get tested for every STD and STI you can think of. That appointment was one of the worst experiences of my life, sitting there as a 6-month pregnant woman, knowing that my husband could have exposed me and our unborn baby to disease, knowing that he violated my body and my trust in such a fundamental way. But I needed to know the results. I needed to make sure my baby was safe. The next morning, I confronted him. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I was eerily calm as I showed him the text messages. I watched his face as the realization hit him that I knew. I watched as he tried to figure out what to say. I watched as he realized that there was nothing to say. He apologized. He begged for forgiveness. He said he didn't know why he did it. He said it didn't mean anything. He said it was a mistake. These are the things that people say when they've been caught, not when they've actually felt remorse. I told him I wanted a divorce. He looked shocked. As if I was supposed to just accept this and move forward. I told him I was going to see a lawyer. I told him I would be documenting everything. And I told him that he needed to leave the house until the legal paperwork was ready. He tried to negotiate. He asked if there was any hope for reconciliation. I said no. I meant it. Now here's where I need to tell you about something important. I didn't have a lot of time. I was 6 months pregnant. I had 2 young children who depended on me. I had a father who was dying and who I needed to be there for. I didn't have the luxury of falling apart. So I didn't. Instead, I gathered my children and their things, and I called my father. I told him what happened, and I asked if we could stay at his cabin for a while. He said yes without hesitation. I called my OB/GYN and got tested immediately. I called a lawyer and scheduled an appointment. I started documenting everything. All the financial documents, the wills, the accounts set up for my children. I was moving in the shadows, gathering every piece of ammunition I would need. My ex-husband's parents, Ruth and Joe, were devastated when they found out. But unlike my ex, they supported me. Ruth handed over her and Joe's will to me to make sure I was taken care of. She wanted me to know that I wasn't being abandoned by the whole family. My lawyer told me she would have divorce papers ready in about 30 days. She wanted to be thorough. She didn't want to miss anything. 30 days. I had 30 days to protect myself and my children while my whole world fell apart. But before the divorce papers could be filed, there was a confrontation. I reached out to Amanda's parents. Let's call them Bob and Angie. I told them what had happened. I told them about the affair. I showed them some of the text messages. Angie, who has always been like a second mother to me, was furious. She wanted revenge. She forced Amanda and Michael to sit down and made them go through a slideshow of every single text message between them. She presented it like evidence at a trial. I wasn't there for this confrontation. I couldn't be there, but I heard about it afterward. Michael tried to physically attack Amanda during the slideshow. Her father, Joe, had to physically hold him down to keep him from lunging at her. Michael was shouting profanities at Amanda. He was telling her that she would regret this, that she had ruined his life. Amanda started crying. She begged her parents for forgiveness. And her father, Bob, looked at her in the eye and said something that I know cut her deeper than any physical blow could have. I will never forgive you for this. Blood or not, you are no daughter of mine. I didn't raise you to be this person. Amanda had always been her father's girl. That rejection destroyed her. But that wasn't even the worst part. Bob and Angie told Amanda that they were cutting her off, financially and physically. They had been helping her pay for her lawyer in her own divorce. Now they were done. Michael's parents were even more furious. His father looked like he was holding himself back from violence. After the confrontation, Michael went straight home. I know this because I have a Ring doorbell camera, and I have cameras inside the house to monitor the kids when I'm not right next to them. He came home and discovered that most of my things and the kids' things were gone. He lost it, he started yelling, he started throwing things. He put holes in the walls. He trashed the house. And then he realized we weren't there. So he went to my dad's house, and he took a baseball bat to my father's door. He tried to break down the door of a dying man, a man who had been nothing but kind to him, a man who had welcomed him into our family. My father's neighbor heard the commotion and called the police. Michael was arrested. His parents refused to bail him out. Want to talk about the aftermath, because this is where the real work happens. This is where you have to rebuild yourself from the pieces of who you used to be. I started therapy. I'd been in therapy for a year already because I was struggling with my dad's illness, but now I needed it even more. I needed someone to help me process the betrayal, to help me figure out how to tell my children that their father wasn't going to be living with us anymore, to help me understand how I missed the signs of infidelity when there were seemingly no signs to miss. My therapist gave me tools. She helped me understand that sometimes people hide their betrayal very carefully. They might overcompensate with kindness and love and attention precisely because they're doing something terrible. They might act perfectly normal because they're experts at compartmentalization. This doesn't make the betrayal hurt less. But it helped me understand that I didn't fail to see what was right in front of me. They were just very, very good at hiding it. I also started making plans for my children. I scheduled therapy appointments for them. I wanted to tell them the truth in an age-appropriate way. I wanted to be honest with them because I didn't want Michael to twist the narrative and make them choose sides. I told my oldest, "Mommy and Daddy are not going to be together anymore because Daddy did something that broke our trust. It's not your fault. It's not my fault. It's something Daddy chose to do. My kids deserved honesty. They deserve to understand that sometimes people hurt us, and they deserve to know that it wasn't about them." There were comments on the original post where people told me I should stay, where people said, "All men cheat," where people projected their own experiences onto my situation. I refused that narrative. I watched my parents love each other for 20 years. After my mom died, my dad never moved on. He never cheated on my mom. He never even looked at another woman. The kind of love I witnessed growing up was deep and faithful and real. I will not accept anything less than that for myself. I will not teach my children that infidelity is something you just tolerate and accept. So I didn't. Michael reached out constantly after the confrontation. At first, he was begging for forgiveness. He was asking if there was any hope for reconciliation. He was trying to negotiate the terms of the divorce. My lawyer advised me to not block him. She said that every text could be evidence. Every threat, every admission, every moment of him slipping up could be used in the custody hearing. So I kept the messages coming, and I documented everything. He went from begging me to forgive him to threatening me. He said he was going to call the police and claim I kidnapped his children. He called me names I won't repeat. He threatened me. And then he went back to begging. It was emotional whiplash reading through those messages. And yes, they hurt me. Yes, they terrified me. But they also showed me exactly who he was. Not the man I married, the man he chose to become when no one was watching. Amanda started calling me and texting me and demanding I fix the situation, as if this was my problem to fix. As if I had created this chaos instead of being the victim of it. She was playing the victim card very hard. She was blaming me for everything. She said I was jealous of her. She said I was stealing the love of her life. She said that I had introduced them, and so I was responsible for their relationship. She said that Michael only stayed with me because of the kids. She said that my family only turned on her because of me. Every single word was designed to hurt me. Every single word was designed to make me feel like somehow this was my fault. I didn't respond to any of it. I refused to give her the satisfaction of my anger or my pain, but I kept the messages. And my lawyer read them, and she nodded and said this made the case even stronger. Then there was a comment on the post, a comment that made me realize that Amanda had found it. A comment written with bad grammar and filled with accusations and resentment. A comment where she called me by a nickname only she knew. A comment where she outed herself. And I responded with the truth. I told her that she had told me to break up with Michael when I was 19 years old, that she had never told me why, that she'd had an agenda the entire time, that if she'd ever actually told me the truth about her feelings for him, I never would have gotten married and she would have been cut out of my life much sooner. And I told her the thing that I think hurt her the most, that I'd put fake names in the post to protect privacy. But if she wanted to out herself to everyone who read it, that was her choice, not mine. That was the last message I sent her. Michael finally discovered the post. He called me and asked if I was seeking a divorce. I told him I was. He apologized for losing his cool, as if his behavior was just a momentary lapse. As if taking a baseball bat to my father's door was something that could be dismissed as losing his cool. I agreed to let him see the children with supervision. He agreed to those terms without argument. My lawyer and I had another meeting. She's building a very strong case for full custody. Between the infidelity, the financial documents I gathered, and his violent behavior, the case is strong. Michael's brother Jake has been helping me and the kids get settled at my father's cabin. Jake took 30 days of leave from work just to be there for us. He's been so kind, so supportive. He's played games with my kids. He's made them laugh when they needed to laugh. One night after the kids went to bed, Jake told me something. He told me that he's had feelings for me for a long time. Since we were teenagers, He said he just needed to get it off his chest, but he also told me not to do or say anything in response. He understands that I'm not in a place to think about relationships. He understands that my focus needs to be on my children and my healing. I appreciated the honesty, and I appreciated that he respected my boundaries enough to say it, and then let it go. My dad's health continues to decline. He's in the hospital now, and there's no release date in the near future. But my kids are adjusting. My oldest has questions, but I'm letting the therapist help us navigate those conversations in a way that's helpful and not harmful. My oldest made the travel soccer league. My youngest is thriving. The baby is healthy and growing. Things have calmed down. I'm focusing on my dad and my kids and keeping myself busy with things that matter. And I'm healing. Slowly. Painfully. But I'm healing. People ask me if I regret marrying Michael, and the answer is no. I don't regret it because my children exist. My kids are beautiful and kind and smart, and they would not exist if I hadn't made the choice to marry him. But I do regret trusting him. I regret letting my guard down. I regret believing that the person who held me while my father was dying was the same person who was having an affair with my best friend. But I don't regret leaving him. And I don't regret protecting my children. And I don't regret choosing myself, even when it was terrifying. Because here's what I understand now. Sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes showing up and being present isn't genuine. Sometimes the people we trust most are the ones who betray us the deepest. And that's not something we can always see coming. But what we can do is trust our gut. We can set boundaries. We can protect ourselves. And we can leave when we need to leave, even when it's the hardest thing we've ever done. I didn't do anything wrong. Michael did. Amanda did. And I refuse to spend the rest of my life paying for their choices. My children will grow up knowing that infidelity is not acceptable. That betrayal has consequences. That sometimes love means leaving, not staying. And I will be okay. My children will be okay. We will rebuild and we will move forward and we will create a life where we are safe and valued and truly loved. That's what I'm working toward. That's what I'm fighting for. And that's the truth of this story.